on the other one, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Greetings, Cybertronians, I'm DrLockdown, and welcome to the 2000 subscriber Q&A. Wait, hang on a second, I'm not 2000 anymore, what the f***? Yes, right off the bat, I'm sorry this took so long to come out. I had a schedule that I had to keep to, and as such, this ended up getting delayed and delayed because other projects took precedence, and it kept going and going and going, and now it's finally here. Now we're finally good. First off, I want to thank everyone for submitting their questions. They were a blast to go through. Unfortunately, I had to disqualify quite a few because people didn't really follow the rules. One question per person. Is it really that hard to follow? But aside from that, all's gone well, and I'm finally ready to go through things. Enough stalling. Let's get to it. Where do you see the Generations brand going after Kingdom has run its course? Well, we do actually know some of this because of some of the leaks that are coming out. We can't verify said leaks, but they do come from people who are rather credible. Apparently, they're just going back to what Generations was before, and I'm all for it. This whole trilogy thing seems kinda iffy to me. Yeah, it was kinda cool when it started out with the Prime Wars trilogy, but now it's just becoming restrictive. Apparently, a Motormaster's in the works to replace the Combiner Wars one, and we don't know if they'll do the rest of the Stunticons or not, but I'm hoping they do. I mean, the original Stunticons worked fine, but we have better engineering these days, so I really hope that comes through. Beyond that, I really want to see some more Unicron trilogy representation. We've been starved for it. And I don't just mean shitty retools like the Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime that pales in comparison to the original. Like, an update's supposed to make something better than this, not be actively worse. If you're gonna do that, why even bother? Give us more Unicron trilogy, give us the Cybertron Defense Force, that's what I want from it. Although that's not where I see it going, because that's what the question asked for, that's just where I want it to go. Where I see it going is just, well, more G1. What's your favourite repaint? Oh, Henry, how you doing? Just give me a second with that. Dark of the Moon G2 GoBot Sideswipe. Well, he's not really called G2 GoBot Sideswipe, but he is, for f***'s sake, G2 GoBot Sideswipe. Those colours are just a dead ringer, although back as a kid I had no idea. It's a childhood favourite of mine. It was a Walmart exclusive in the US, but it was a Kmart exclusive in Australia. I got it because it was cheap, because it was down to 15 bucks when Deluxes retailed for about 25. My memory's a bit hazy because I was a kid at the time, but I remember these clogging up the shelves so hard. But I have so much fondness for the guy. There's so many little details and Easter eggs. Transformation is absolutely lovely. Wonderful detail. The weapons are actually kind of cool. Yeah, they look like water pistols, but I don't really mind. He's got so much character to him, and he gave me an appreciation for G2 without me ever owning a G2 toy at the time. I really hope Repro Labels does a set for the Netflix deep cover to turn it into G2 Sideswipe. That would be awesome. What is your favorite WFC trilogy figure? Ooh, that's a tough one. I really don't know, to be honest. I've got some candidates, but I don't really have a definitive answer. The Sideswipe mold's pretty damn awesome. Astro Train's brilliant. Cyclonus and Air Razor, they're amazing. I actually have an idea once this trilogy's over to rank all of the War for Cybertron figures, but that is going to be a massive undertaking. And there's no way I'm starting it now, because the trilogy isn't even over yet. I don't even have all the figures yet. And what even counts for that kind of list? Do you count re-releases of old figures because they released on Amazon later on? I don't know. See, right now I don't have a definitive favorite figure, but I will one day. Just give me a bit. Are you going to do reviews of older figures like 2000 to 2007-ish figures, or stick with more current figures? Yes, I'd love to. The only problem is the YouTube algorithm makes it really difficult to. If it's not a current figure that people aren't interested in, fewer people will watch it on the outset, and then YouTube won't recommend it to more people. The algorithm is rather unforgiving, so I have to be creative about it. That's one of the reasons why I like doing versus reviews with older figures, because then it allows me to tackle older figures, just in a newer context that shows the comparison over time. Then there's also the Second Opinion series, although that's not really 2000 to 2007. That's more figures that I've reviewed when I started the channel out. But yes, I would very much like to review a lot of those older figures, like I did with Classics Mirage. I just can't do them as often as I'd like. I have to keep a steady stream of content for newer figures, as much as I hate it. What's your favourite Seeker? Acid Storm, always been a massive fan. Out of the versions I own, I'd have to say Iron Factory is my favourite. Since New Age kinda looks like those Starburst lollies that were the worst out of the pack and the only flavour I didn't like. The Thrilling 30 version comes with that god-awful Minicon, and the Siege version, well, that was a disappointment. I am hoping that Make Toys releases their version. I've pre-ordered it and I'm still waiting on it. I'm still waiting to see if they actually release it. Come on, Make Toys, hang in there, we need you back in the game. Come on, hit it! What is your favourite dinosaur? I don't have one. Sorry, I'm not the biggest dinosaur guy. I like dinosaurs, don't get me wrong, but I've never thought about a favourite. Apologies. Someone had to have asked this already somewhere. No, they didn't, actually. But do you consider mini-bots, not mini-bots, that come with leader-class figures like Scorponok from Blackout, Wheelie from Grimlock, or the possible Ravage from Grindor as a required part part of your Legends, Core, Scouts, Tiny Things Larger Than Tiny But Still Small class collection? Nah, not really. Most of the time they don't even transform, and they're not even considered Transformers, they're considered accessories. I do make a bit of an exception for the Minicons from the Unicron trilogy, but I'm not actively going for those. If I see a bunch of them for sale, I'll easily pick them up. But if I try to go all completionist, I'd probably have to buy the entire line, and then I'd have to sell off the bots that I don't want. It's just a hassle. So no, not really. Too much of a hassle when they're barely even Transformers most of the time. Especially Wheelie. F that thing, that's an accessory. Was there a point that a younger sibling or younger cousin accidentally broke one of your figures beyond repair, besides your original Revenge of the Fallen Leader Prime? I don't think so. I was more careful with my Transformers than I was with the other figures in my childhood collection. Don't get me wrong, plenty of figures were broken, but not my Transformers. I was very careful with those. Unless I broke them, I broke a few of them in my time. I think the biggest example of that would be Generations Dark Mount. I broke my first copy and then had to hunt down a second one on the aftermarket a few years back. And I'm really glad to have it in my collection. It's such a fun figure, even if it's a little wonky in areas. What would you consider to be the best and worst repaints out of Generations Select so far? Off the top of my head, I'd probably say Siege Hotshot is the best. It's such a lush figure, and I really hope they do the other two members of the Cybertron Defense Force. Come on, Hasbro, you cowards! As for the worst, I just got it recently. Earthrise Sandstorm. Jesus, what a letdown. I was expecting to like this figure, a version of the Seeker molds without the god-awful paint chipping. Sign me right the up. But something about this infuriates me. I just don't know why. I get even more angry over this than I do G2 Megatron for some reason. This is actually worse than Starscream for many reasons, and I will get into that soon. Not this weekend, but he's scheduled for next weekend, so get ready for a beat down. And back in the box. What is your favorite giant Transformers character, either in media or as a toy? Well, as a toy, probably Predaking over there. He's just got so much great engineering to him. He's awesome. And as for characters in media, well, I don't know their characters per se, but I love Lio Kaiser and Raiden. Just the concepts and designs of them really get my jimmies unruffled. And I am so excited for Masterpiece Raiden. That is gonna be absolutely awesome. Yes, surprisingly, it's not Unicron. Why do you beat a point/joke to death, such as ER Cliffjumper? Give me a second. Looks safe enough. Okay, so the way I write scripts is that I try to cram as much information as possible into a short time frame. What can I talk about a figure? What information can I provide? What context can I provide? And these days, what has Hasbro done? Well, become much more open to parts forming. And as such, there are different types of parts forming, some which I find are acceptable, others which I don't. Because of that, I need a point of reference, and that's what Cliffjumper started out as. He was the baseline level of, this is not okay, this is the level where I draw the line where it's complete shit. And I kept bringing him up, and he kept the joke going, and it just kind of naturally happened. That's how my script writing thing goes. I don't actively set out to ham-fist Cliffjumper jokes into it, it just kind of happens in the process. And I should clarify, I don't actually hate Cliffjumper, I just hate the concept of him. I've got an idea for a review for him where I discuss that he is an amazing figure in every single area except the parts forming. He could have been a top-tier War for Cybertron figure. He could have been my favorite of the entire line if they had just engineered the back properly. You can't even use that backpack thing. I had that backpack thing and it fell to bits because it's a 3D printed part. It's not designed to work under the stress of constant transformations. There's so much to love with the figure. In fact, I even bought the repro labels for it. I don't buy repro labels for figures I don't like. But it annoys me. It really does. Your thoughts on the Core Class Magnus rumors? As far as I can gather, there are no rumors. The only thing about Core Class Magnus is things that I've said. I can see that there's tabs all over the damn thing that could work under Magnus armor. And yes, maybe it was designed to work for the Arc, but the Arc doesn't have compatibility with those Legends figures. Sorry, Core Class figures. Jeez, it's gonna take a while to get used to saying that still. I can see the potential for a Magnus upgrade there, just from my own personal analysis, but I haven't heard any rumors of such. But I would love them to make one, don't get me wrong. That would take a deeply disappointing figure that's just slightly above average and turn it into something truly brilliant. Have you ever broken a toy when trying to transform it to the point where it couldn't be fixed? Yes, all the time, as I mentioned with Dark Mount. Also happened with Fans Project Akara. I really liked that figure, but then the feet just broke. Fans Project Akara. See, I do like Fans Project figures. Actually, scratch that. She broke while I was transforming her, just like Roadbuster.
Disqualified!
That was a big disappointment, wasn't it? In the Kingdom line, would you like to see the new characters from the comic in toy form, and at what capacity? Yes! Yes! Despite the colossal failure of a year that 2020 was, how do you feel about the games that came out? Hades is a personal favourite of mine, by the way. Also, thanks for the kind words below that. Been meaning to get into Hades, but I just don't have the time to play a lot of games these days. Most of my time is dedicated to editing. If I have a spare moment, I'm editing. If I've got a lunch break at work, I'm editing. If I've got a day off, I'm editing. It's really crazy. I really need to get into more games because I've got such a big backlog. But 2020 was great for a couple of reasons. Xenoblade Mother Chronicles Hell Yeah Definitive Edition. My favourite game of all time getting remade, and almost everything was amazing. I'm still about a quarter of the way through a Diagnosis Insanity script on this thing, and I really want to finish it because I want to let everyone know this game is amazing. Yeah, no one's probably going to watch it due to the YouTube algorithm, but I'm going to do it. Even got the thumbnail ready thanks to Flylash, an amazing artist. Go follow him on Twitter. Also finally purchased a PS4 and put an ungodly amount of time into Persona 5 Royal. And coincidentally, both Persona 5 Royal and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition were purchased around the time that I was temporarily laid off work, and my computer broke, so I couldn't work on the CCons week. I couldn't work on any videos, so I was waiting for that to be repaired, and all I could do was play video games, so I finally got to sit down and enjoy these amazing games. Really got to play Strikers. I've played about 5 hours of it, really loved it, but just, again, time. I don't have a lot of time. I am a new-ish content creator on the platform, and on my channel I am trying to blend elements of Thew Adams, Vangelis, and AVGM into my reviews with stop-motion components as well. Great list of influences, by the way. The first two are definitely some of mine. And I love the nerd too. But it seems like when I say something other than it's a budget masterpiece about modern figures on my reviews, everyone thinks I'm cynical and impossible to please. I can see what they mean when it comes to channels like, and I'm gonna censor that bit just so that I don't end up sending a hate group over there. That's one thing I won't do, trash other YouTubers. I apologize, but I'll continue with the question. Nitpicking a figure to death about its screen accuracy, but a good portion of my rage is an act. How do I emphasize that it's an act in a way that points out the flaw, but doesn't somehow offend anyone? I guess the only thing I can say is, no matter what you do, people are gonna hate you on the internet. And in real life as well, no matter what you do, your mere existence will infuriate people. So all I can say is just be yourself, just be true to yourself. And if you want to make it clear it's an act, maybe play up the absurdity. Push it to the point where no sane person would say such a thing. Make it clear that it's absolutely a joke. And maybe have other people play off you saying that you're going off the deep end. That's part of the reason why I brought on the character of Vaughn to kind of act as a straight man occasionally, and to also sometimes parody the absurdity of the community. Just kind of whatever fits the script. Actually, let me just check something again. Gotta be double, triple certain. What's your favourite Transformer that got a bad figure? Ooh, let me think about that one for a second. Double Dealer's a really good example, because I loved that KOG1 toy as a kid, and I really want to see that get a proper toy. But me, that Earthrise one was a piece of shit. What else, though? Because I know there's other examples. Ah, Lio Kaiser! He just cannot catch a break. You can't get the original toy because it's so expensive. Not to mention, I think he's got gold plastic syndrome. I can't remember that at the moment, but I'll double check and add it in the editing process. And then the TFC version wobbles around and barely stands on a shelf. And we don't talk about the Combiner Wars one. We just don't. We need a new Lio Kaiser. A proper Lio Kaiser. Give it to us, someone! I think Double Dealer and Lio Kaiser would probably benefit from a fans hobby release. I mean, I know I really dislike Minerva, but they seem like really passionate people. Oh yeah, that's another one, Minerva! Yeah, fans hobby Minerva's a piece of shit. Almost forgot about that until I was talking about the answer. Hey doc, I am suffering from a disease called WFC-SOPC, which stands for War for Cybertron Siege Optimus Prime cringes to death. Please tell me a medicine. Watch a better show, like Castlevania or Dragon Prince or The Witcher. Netflix has a bunch of other great shows. Redline's on there too, I've really got to rewatch that. What was a figure that you thought was bad but was actually good? I think one of my favourites in that category would have to be Siege Astro Train. I bought it as an impulse purchase, I gave it a chance, I thought it would be terrible, but really it turned out to be one of the best toys of the trilogy. And I loved it. That's one of the reasons I loved writing the script, because I could work in so many biases that I had, and then I could tear them all down through careful analysis. If only I'd done that review with the grey background, it would have turned out much better. Regarding Movie Masterpiece / NPM KOs, we know you dislike Wei-Jang Optimus, but what about NPM Bumblebee, NPM Jazz, and the others that have hit the line? I haven't really bought any in a very long time, because a lot of them don't seem like Masterpiece figures. They seem like leader figures with a slightly larger budget. I do have the original Bumblebee, and he is quite good. And also I've messed briefly with the Volkswagen version, and I didn't even want to transform it just seemed like a mess. But in general, I just feel Hasbro's putting way too many restrictions on these figures, and I don't just mean in the budget, I mean in time. They're pushing these out way too quickly. They need to slow down, let these figures get the time to be engineered properly. Optimus Prime and Ironhide are probably the most egregious examples, but it's the same across the entire line. Not to mention the NPM Bumblebee Optimus Prime, it just looks unfinished. Like, take Freedom Leader for example. This guy has a horrendous alternate mode, one of the worst alternate modes I've seen at this scale. I mean, I personally like it, but in terms of cohesion, it's pretty poor. It should have been so easy to outclass the alternate mode here, but they didn't. How is that even possible? And again, I'm not saying these figures should be $300 each, even though many of them are. Look at the recent skids and reboots. Those are like, what, $90 each?
No.
These figures need more time in the oven. Hasbro needs to slow down with these releases. Legitimately, I find way more fun with these Studio Series renditions. Even with all their flaws, like this is a pretty flawed figure, all things considered. They offer unique and complete transformations. The robot modes feel whole, and the vehicle modes actually hold together. I wanted to know your honest thoughts on Transformers Cybertron and your favorite figures from the line. Loved the show as a kid, love the show now. And I think my favorite toy from it is pretty obvious. I've also bought the Megatron off one of my mates, but I've yet to pick it up, and that was about 2 months ago, so I hope he still has it. In your mind, what should the plot for Bumblebee 2, the reboot, be? I don't care what it is, I just want the Transformers to be the main characters. I want Cybertronians to be treated as people. I want them to undergo proper story arcs and get a bunch of screen time. I understand that as a Hollywood film that's very difficult because they're trying to save on the effects budget, but that's really what a Transformers series needs. There's a reason people are drawn to Transformers, whereas they aren't drawn as much to Gundam or Macross or other shows like that. It's the characters. Yes, they're robots that look cool, but they are also characters. I know that that's not going to happen from a live-action Transformers film, because they need to sell tickets and they need a human character for people to identify with. Which is a pretty stupid mindset, mind you, but that leads into a whole other conversation that's very political, and I don't like discussing politics on my channel. Well, aside from a few brief jokes here and there. What Transformers character do you think deserves a masterpiece figure? Would have said Raiden, but we're getting a Raiden, so that's amazing. So I guess I'll say Lio Kaiser. Do you think there is a potential that the new buzzworthy Bumblebee mold will be retooled and recolored into Bumper and the 2 sedans from the G1 Brazilian line for the Generation Selects line? Bumble Jumper? Absolutely. Probably as a pack-in for like an Amazon release or something similar, but definitely it'll be there. But G1 Brazilian? Nah, I don't see that happening. There's obscure, and then there's ridiculously obscure. Don't get me wrong, I would love to see those color schemes. They look amazing, but it's just not gonna happen, I don't think so. Hey DrLockdown, if you ever really wanted a specific character to be in Generation Selects, who would it be? Grammar's a bit off, but I think you mean who would it be, correct? Am I getting that right? Well, the one character I wanted was Black Zarek, and yes! I guess off the top of my head, Powered Convoy would be pretty nice. In fact, remake the original gift set. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Trailbreaker molds, but I'd happily take that gift set. In fact, imagine if they did that gift set as a convention exclusive and made the box art just like the original Diaclone release. That would be amazing. I wouldn't really care because I just chuck the boxes out anyway, but I know a lot of people would be happy with that. Who's your favorite Toa and your favorite villain? Favorite Toa has always been Vakama. I loved his character, I loved his design, just awesome all around. And my favorite villain would have to be Akmal. I hated that slimy bastard in the books as a kid. Can you tell I'm primarily a Metru fan? What are your thoughts on Transformers Prime? Very well written, very well animated, a decent toy line that sadly I missed out on. But sadly, due to the limitations of 3D animation, they can't really write outside the box. They don't really push the envelope. It gets pretty stale until we reach Beast Hunters. That's the problem with 3D animation. You need to make a lot of models in order to make the world really big. It's kind of why I think 2D animation is better suited for Transformers, because you can do wider character casts. But that's just me. That's just my own personal opinion. Do you watch anime? Yes, I do. Wait, I just quoted Samuel L. Jackson, didn't I? Ah, shit. Favorites more obscure, not Godzilla, Mothra, Ghidorah. I assume you're referring to kaijus and such? Probably a tie between just as a weirdo, and I really want to see him in the Monsterverse. And Baragon, because, well, let me just play the clip. Which do you think is better, Siege or Earthrise? Siege in a heartbeat, for reasons I've discussed on this channel at length. Will you answer this question? No. What figure would you say is a straight up 10? No critiques or flaws, just a straight 10 out of 10. None of them. There's no such thing as a perfect figure. Every figure has flaws. Could you rank Cyberverse Deluxe's best to worst? I was gonna do a week where I reviewed all of them, but I don't think I'm gonna go around to doing that, so why not? Worst is probably Grimlock. It's just a mess. And yes, people have told me, oh, the crown fits in robot mode. Not on my copy, it doesn't. It's probably a QC issue. Then probably Thunder Howl, who is deeply undercooked. I mean, why doesn't it even have the standard articulation the rest of them had? Seems like they had an idea for a warrior class figure and then kind of ham-fisted it into a deluxe. That's just the feeling I get. Then Soundwave, I didn't even bother getting that one. After that, probably Hot Rod. He's alright, but really lacking in paint, and his transformation's a bit too simple. Starscream, I was expecting to hate this figure, but I ended up really liking him. Bought him off a friend who only wanted the blast effects, so I didn't get the blast effects, but I think they look stupid anyway. Then Megatron, he's fine, but a bit lackluster. Then RC, I know a lot of people hate her, but I really like her. Then Shockwave, incredibly fun and very well painted. Optimus Prime, really well engineered. I just wish they'd had something to fold up into those forearms. I don't mind hollowness most of the time, but it seems a bit excessive on that, especially when I think they could have engineered like a panel that goes over there. Maybe I'll design it if I ever learn how to 3D print. And finally, Bumblebee, something I was not expecting from the line. He is easily the best of the bunch. But he's a goddamn retool. No, it's not. Stop it with these retool comments. How is it after I made the April Fool's video, I got more comments about retools? What have I done? What made you want to start a YouTube channel and why? I don't know, I just watched an absurdly large amount of YouTube videos and I just thought I'd give it a shot myself. What are your favorite iterations of Soundwave and Shockwave in figure form, bar Siege, and Earthrise? I don't really think the Siege versions are the best anyway. If we're talking Soundwave, probably the recent New Age version that I grabbed is the best. And as for Shockwave, Fans Toys Quakewave, one of the few Fans Toys releases that isn't overcomplicated bullshit. Very nice. What do you think is the worst Transformers show? Would you like to see more non-G1 characters done in chug lines, example Barricade, and if so, who? Yes, I'm sick of G1 in these lines, it's getting ridiculous! There are other fans who aren't into G1, we need representation outside of it. I've already mentioned the Cybertron Defense Force, I've already mentioned the Unicron trilogy, but more Beast Wars, I'd like some of that, I'd like some Depth Charge, thank you very much. Give me some animated as well, I'd love that. Maybe a Chug Arachnin while you're at it, that would be awesome. And more Japanese G1, we haven't had enough of that. We need Commander Class Star Saber! What would be your thoughts if Hasbro made figures based on media that is not from the G1 cartoon and Marvel Comics, other than DevCon? From America, but from Japan, Europe, Mexico, and Brazilian characters, and figures into the modern day style figures and styles. And the second question is basically the same as the last one, but I don't see Europe, Mexico, and Brazilian characters making it into it. I'd like to see them, but I don't see that happening. What's your opinion on G2?
Commander comes warring! Onslaught warring is one metamorph from Dudicus!
How difficult is it to get figures in Australia as compared to the United States? I'm saying this because I buy my figures mostly from stores like Target and Walmart, and I'm curious what the experience is like. General retail ain't got shit. If you want to buy stuff in Australia, most of the time you have to resort to online, especially with several scalping issues. If there's a toy that's highly sought after on store shelves, scalpers are gonna get it. Especially the Netflix line, it's really Although recently EB Games has been stocking a lot of exclusives, which is amazing. That's where I got the recent Core Class figures from, and I'm really satisfied with how that turned out. Just click and collect, go pick it up, done deal. Do you like the Studio Series Dino and Studio Series Bumblebee movie Starscream? I do like the Starscream, but he definitely has his compromises. Hoping to tackle this guy soon. I hope they didn't just jinx it. As for Dino, I don't have him yet. I'm looking forward to him, and I don't mind the weird alternate mode, but I'm expecting him to be kind of a middling release. Just kind of one of those Studio Series cars with a backpack, which is fine, but yeah, it's not one of the best figures they've ever done. Still better than most of the deluxes in SS86, though. At one point, do you consider the addition of the ability to transform to an action figure become a hindrance to the toy, and why? At no point. It's a transformer. It should be able to transform. It's less about the ability to transform becoming a hindrance to the action figure, and more about the lack of the ability to transform, meaning that the figure should be better. The reason I don't like the red line is not because it doesn't transform, but because it's so lackluster. If it doesn't transform, and if it's costing as much as it does, these figures should be perfect, but they're not. A lot of the time, the War for Cybertron figures are just categorically better, so why wouldn't you just buy those? We didn't get the first wave at retail, but most online stores sold the Red Series at $40, which is the same price as your Marvel Legends and Star Wars Black Series figures. And those figures you can't get the leeway of licensing, but Transformers is owned by Hasbro, so that shouldn't be a thing. Those figures should be amazing. They should be god tier for what you're paying, and they just aren't. So I'm not even bothering with that line. I'm not going to act like a broken record buying figures I know I'm going to hate. What Transformers Prime figures do you have besides Platinum Ultra Magnus? Not that many, to be honest. I've got most of the Cyberverse lineup. I've also got the original Weaponizer, which will replace Magnus if I can finally sell him off. Damn it, everyone's wised up from my review, so no one's going to purchase it. Also Dead End, who is amazing. I think he topped one of my best of the year lists once. And he was deserving of it, aside from the lack of I think it was a bicep swivel? Yeah, I think it was a bicep swivel. In your opinion, what is the best modern third-party company? New Age does amazing transformations, brilliant build quality, wonderful articulation. Yeah, it's G1 tune, but it doesn't push it extremely into that, and it still delivers a lot of mechanical detail. Bit worried about their Devastator, but no other releases let me down, so I'm very happy with them. Which is the worst Studio Series figure? Roadbuster or World War II Bumblebee? At least Roadbuster has good plastic quality and decent paint. Bumblebee has... Yeah, I got nothing. If you could create your Transformers character, what would their ult mode be and what faction would they be? Actually, I did once have a really Transformers OC back when I was into Lego Transformers. He was called Spectre, he kinda had a Wally face but with a telescopic eye. He was yellow, turned into a muscle car with claws at the front of it. Decepticon, but of course he was edgy, so he defected, and he was the chosen one who wielded the special scythe weapon because at the time I was really into Ruby. God, why do we all do this to ourselves? Are you into the original and new Doom games? I played 1 hour of Doom 2016, I was shit at it, but I loved every minute of it, but I just haven't gone back to it because again, time. Never played the originals though. I'm not actually that into shooters. shooters, so the fact that Doom appealed to me is quite surprising. What is your favorite exclusive figure? Probably MMC Feral Queen? Really gotta redo that video someday. If you had the chance to make your own Transformers TV show or movie, which characters would be a part of your casts? If I had the chance to make my own one, it would probably star Starscream, Road Rage. The villain will be a zealot that takes the form of Optimus Primal because he is obsessed with Optimus Prime, really is a psychopath. The series will be Made in Abyss meets Owlboy, meets The Matrix, with a kind of time loop mechanic. I actually want to make that one day if I ever learn how to 3D animate. Do you think that Hasbro didn't release the Armada Optimus Prime because they either cancelled it, or they're just waiting to release it in the next trilogy? Hasbro didn't make that prototype, Takara did. From what I hear, and again these are leaks that can't be verified, it's stuck in budget limbo, they just don't know how to release it. Doesn't work in the Masterpiece line because the engineering isn't there, and doesn't work in Generation Selects because it's too expensive. That's just what I've heard, and I hope they release it after all. Problem is, because it's a Takara figure, giving it over to Hasbro to release at the general market might not work. I think the best way to release it would be by crowdfund under HasLab. Sure, it might be a bit cheap for that, it might not be as expensive as old Unicron over there, but I think it would really work. Where did the name DrLockdown come from? Are you a medical professional or did it just sound catchy? I have never touched medicine in my life. Literally, I came up with the name while I was running on the treadmill, it just kind of popped in there. If you could smash any figure or figures with a hammer, which On would you smash? I wouldn't, it's a waste of money. If you could pick one rare figure from the current WFC trilogy line to be reissued, which would it be? 1 second, back to the shelf again. Definitely old Skywarp over here. I had to buy this on the aftermarket without the Battle Masters, and thankfully I didn't pay too much for him because I was smart with how I went about doing it. Again, Facebook marketplaces are a godsend. But, I gotta get political for a second, f*** me. So a bit of a long story, but Harvey Norman and JB Hi-Fi weren't liking how much people were shopping online, so they lobbied the government to input a 10% tax on imports. We didn't have that tax beforehand, but they were asking corporations to do it, as opposed to the consumer. And at the time, Amazon said, "F*** this shit, we're not paying it. Aussies just won't get to buy things from overseas." And at the time, well, that's when Skywarp came out. Sure, other places had him, but they were purchased from Amazon and they were being marked up at ridiculous rates. It was incredibly stupid. So most Aussies didn't get a chance to get Skywarp, and they've never reissued him. They've reissued so many other packs, but not Skywarp for some reason. So he is the one I think would benefit the most. How does King Crimson work? With difficulty. Why don't you like the Siege Rainmakers? And are they worth the price they are now in your opinion? They are worth the price if you're a completionist of that mold like myself. To anyone else, absolutely not. The main reason I don't like it is because they've got no paint. If you want to go neon, you really have to up the accents with the paint. You have to paint it to the absolute nines with extra grey, with extra silver, with extra highlights, with extra neon lines. Doing it all in the same neon color just makes it look ugly. Just take a look at the difference between Ion Storm and Thundercracker. The proof is in the pudding. And it happened to my favorite Seeker, which is why I'm even more pissed. Do you think Hasbro should just have a year of repaints and re-releases after Kingdom is over before anything new? Well, I mean, it worked for Universe 2003 back in the day, but I don't think modern collectors would be into it. Besides, next year we are getting more stuff, so it doesn't matter. That said, I do think they should start re-releasing older molds in the newer line. Not as repacks like Optimus Prime RC and Wheeljack. I mean, proper repaints, but I don't think they're gonna do that. Apparently, repaints clog up more shelf space than repacks do, which is kind of annoying. So at least we have selects to rely on. Give me Battle Convoy! When regarding third-party KOs, where do you draw the line from taking inspiration from a previous design and coming up with an equal or better figure, to just stealing ideas and making no effort to improve the original design? It's all IP theft. It's all technically illegal. Honestly, as long as you're not stealing from one fan and copying that, which is what TF Safari does, f*** them, I find it personally fine. But categorically, it is all illegal. You just gotta accept that, and you can argue that, no, it's like this, no, they're changing this. Nah, that's not how IP theft works. I don't mind it, I'm perfectly alright with it, but it's illegal. Opinion on customization of figures. Love it, but I'm shit at it. Will you do a reaction video on Few Adams knockoff beatdown? No, not really, because I can't provide anything over it. The way I see reaction videos should be to large events, because they're not siphoning off views from them, because everyone's going to watch those big events. If you're making a reaction to a relatively small YouTuber, Few's not small, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge company, you're just siphoning off views. People are just gonna watch your reaction video instead of them. That just seems a bit passé to me. The only things I'm gonna react to are big live streams from big companies. I'm not gonna do reactions to anything else. Plus, reaction videos are very hard to put together because they have to be live in the way I see it, and sometimes they're at absurdly weird times. Thoughts on the actual course of the Studio Series line? I really hope SS86 doesn't overstay its welcome because it's getting boring. What, according to you, is the most bizarre thing ever created that is technically a Transformers toy? Doesn't matter if it's official, KO, third party, or not homaging any real Transformers characters. Ever heard of Keroro Starscream? Of all the forms of entertainment franchises that you enjoy, which ones would you like to see collaborate, and do you feel passionate enough to take that idea into fanfic form? I don't really like fanfics, I don't read them, I don't write them, it's not my thing. In terms of crossovers between franchises, what I'd really like to see is a Terminator film that brings all of those splintered timelines back together. These reboots and remakes are just getting ridiculous, and I feel one solid conversion point to make everything make sense would not only retcon all the previous bullshit, but would also tie the franchise together. Can fate be changed? Is everything truly predestined? Answer that. Give it to a director who cares, take risks with the franchise, don't care about fans' nostalgia for the original, just make something original. No, that's not Transformers, but it's an idea that I have. What do you think of Mars toys? After the War for Cybertron trilogy and Cyberverse are over, what do you think Hasbro and Takara are going to do for a show, toy lines, and such? Well, we kinda know what's happening with the toy lines, but in terms of the shows, I'm a bit skeptical. I love the director they've chosen for the Nickelodeon show, but I'm really concerned with the animation studio. I've looked through their backlog and a lot of it just looks cheap. And that screams to me that Hasbro just isn't putting their best foot forward. I keep saying it, but the Transformers franchise needs to take risks. It needs big projects that do big things. And Hasbro just ain't doing it. It just keeps kinda trundling along, doing its thing nice and slowly. Nostalgia isn't gonna sell forever. They need to branch out, like they did with animated, like they did with Prime, like they did with the Movieverse, like they did with the Unicron trilogy. We need a return to form, but I don't think they're gonna do that. But that Beast Alliance film sounds pretty interesting from the synopses. Maybe that'll be good, I don't know. What do you think of third-party revisiting lines that Hasbro forgot, like with the Armada Optimus Prime that Fans Hobby just released, and the future Energon one that's in the works? I love them doing that, and I think that's what they should stick to. This whole third-party thing is becoming a bit of a clusterfuck. It's really on the brink of collapse. One wrong move and Hasbro will go after all of them. It will happen someday, but in order to delay that, third parties need to start being smart. They need to start doing original things, which is what the Amazing Spider Designs and what Iron Factory is doing. They need to start going to series that aren't being done well, and I think that's what Unicron Trilogy remakes will do. If we keep doing Movieverse and G1, Movieverse and G1, Movieverse and G1, things just aren't going to be sustainable. And whatever you do, don't tackle the Flames Toys design. It's just an exercise in futility. Yes? Maybe? Who would win in a fight, Unicron or Galactus? I don't know. What is part of the Transformers franchise that you have not gotten into? Oddly enough, IDW. I've got all the comics on my computer through that Humble Bundle, but I haven't read most of it. Really gotta get into it. Also Japanese G1. I haven't watched all of it, I just really like the designs. What are your thoughts on the IDW 1 TF comics so far? I've only read Phase 1, and that's about it. What are some KOs that you plan on getting in the future? I really want to get those APC Toys Prime figures. I've gotta get them because I'm just not happy with the weaponizer versions. What are your thoughts on HasLab Unicron being different from the prototype that was shown? All prototypes are different from what they're shown. You look at renders, you look at the final product, it's fine. Besides, if you don't like the way the teeth look, just get one of these. Who is your favorite celebrity voice actor who has played a Transformer? Actually, if I'm being honest, not a lot of the celebrity voices really interest me. I guess the closest I could have to that is Steve Bloomer's Starscream. But most of the time, it's just kind of like, it's a thing that happens. They do a very good job, but most of the memorable voices in my mind come from proper voice actors. Was wondering what you think of the possible Titan-class arc and the theory that the core-class guys, Optimus, Megatron, Starscream, being made to be compatible with it. You can see how long I delayed this video because that was accurate when this first came out. But now we know that there's an arc coming, and we know that the core-class figures aren't really compatible with it. The scaling's off, there doesn't really seem to be a compartment in the middle that fits them. I might get the arc later down the line, but I want to put my money towards Black Zarak. I've been hoping for an update for years, even before War for Cybertron was a thing. So I'll go in on that, and I might get the arc later down the track. They reissue these Titans all the time, aside from Unicron. It's a thing that happens. Any tips for someone wanting to do Transformers reviews and a Transformers series? Step 1, watch a whole bunch of reviews that you particularly like. Step 2, make a list of everything you like about them, as well as things you don't like about them. What are you trying to avoid? Step 4, get to work. Implement what you can, and what you can't, work towards it. Keep pushing. Every video you should be making it even better. You should hate every single video you put out. You should drive to make everyone better than the last. And keep going and keep going and keep going, and eventually you'll get to a point that's satisfactory. Look at where I started at. It was terrible. In fact, I'm still terrible. I'm not happy with this shit at all. What are your thoughts on Hot Rod / Rodimus Prime? I know a lot of people say they're completely different, but I find them pretty much the same thing. One's got a trailer, one doesn't. It's not a truck, it's a car with a trailer. We've seen it in the G1 cartoon. Even the toy was like that, don't kid yourself. I find that a lot of the third-party versions really hit the spots, but a lot of the official ones just kind of miss the point. Carrie is amazing. The Mech Fans Toys one is amazing. But SS86 Hot Rod is functionally good, but I just get nothing from him. That's just personal preference though, I can't really complain about him. And as for Kingdom Rodimus, well, he's not out, but I'm just not really feeling it either. After the awesomeness that was Skylinks, something is missing. But maybe he'll come out and maybe he'll be amazing. I don't know. Which Transformers crossover do you want to see happen besides Gundam? I don't actually want to see Gundam happen, because Gundam vs. Transformers wouldn't make much sense. If I wanted to see a crossover, I would like to see Transforming Thunderbirds. That would be amazing. Can you imagine a combiner of all the 5 Thunderbirds? Maybe the Thunderbots? Jesus, that would be awesome. Do you think by any chance will there be third-party animated figures? Nah, they keep doing G1 and it's getting stupid. I love them, but no one seems to be doing them. Aside from Sam's Forge, doing amazing work there.
What are your opinions about the Shrek franchise? Ogre-rated or ogre-realming?
It's surprisingly held up well over the years as a deconstruction of the fairy tale genre. First two are good, everything after that is eh.
It was at this precise moment that I realized my camera had ran out of space and I had to resume footage from a few questions back. I am terribly annoyed by it.
God, the editing for this one's gonna be egregious.
What is that one Transformers that you wanted so badly but couldn't get your hands on it? My white whale would easily be MP10 Eva Convoy. He came out when I was still at the car wash job where I was earning, I think, about $10 an hour, which is well below Aussie minimum wage. So there's no way I could have afforded him at the time, even if I was able to jump on the pre-orders. And yeah, I could probably get one these days, but I'm imagining it'll cost me at least $1,000. So it's just a matter of eventually. I'll get around to it eventually. Are you gonna get HasLab Unicron? Can you tell how late this video is? What are you a doctor in? Shit taste. Are there any really obscure TF characters you're fond of? Oh, tons throughout the entire series. Too many to count, in fact. What is your personal favourite year/years of Bionicle, if you have one, of course? Nostalgia-wise, probably the Metronui saga, the first part, not the Web of Shadows part. It was the first time I got exposed to it, and as such, I have a lot of nostalgia for it. But if we're talking the best, probably the Phantoka Mystica saga. That had some really good sets. And we all know the anthem.
For freedom we rise!
If Studio Cell and HasLab Unicron were both free, which would you get? Well, aside from already paying for HasLab Unicron, I just think it's the better figure. It's got a better shelf presence, the materials are better, the mechanical details better, the planet mode doesn't look like a giant anus. Plus, I've got personal bias against Zeta as a company. They just irk me for some reason. There's no particular reason why, it's just, I don't know. What is your guilty pleasure figure? One widely considered terrible that you like regardless of its flaws. I suppose the Legends of Cybertron Thundercracker mold? I don't have the original, I had the Starscream as a kid, and I have the Jetfire now, but it's naff. Still, I can't bring myself to hate it. It was one of the figures I got initially when I first started collecting as a kid. I still kinda want to hunt down a Starscream eventually, matter of fact, even though I know it's terrible. To replace my childhood copy. I'm curious about the comment you made in your review of the clones during the marathon. In what issue you have with Figma-style joints, wouldn't it add to articulation? Of course, this is with Figma in mind, as the Pounce and Wingspan example is annoying. I only own one Figma, but hopefully I'll be able to display as such. Take the wrist on Lucina, for example. She has 3 joints right there. If you try rotating just the fist or just the arm, it might rotate one joint or it might rotate the other joint. And as such, it's very difficult to get things into place. Not impossible, but it's not fun. And for a display piece like a Figma, that's fine. It's not meant to be played with. But for a Transformers action figure, if it's not fun, why bother? All you really need for a Legends figure is a ball joint. If you've got a ball joint, you don't really need a bicep swivel. And as such, with a Figma figure, I get what they're trying to do to get that extra bit of rotation, but why not just use a ball joint? It's just eh. What Kingdom figure would you rank highest out of the ones that have either been revealed or leaked? If you're talking about the ones that haven't come out yet, I would probably say Trax, but not because of Trax himself. Rather, it's because Trax means we're getting a Road Rage, and Road Rage is awesome. You thought of getting into 3D printing for your own Transformers figures? Yes, but 3D printers are very expensive. And I'm not that great a modeler anyway. Have you watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and what are your thoughts on it? Oddly enough, whilst I've watched since the very beginning, I actually find Part 5 the best. I just like how fast-paced it is. How it never stops and keeps chasing down. And I am so hyped for Part 6. And I really hope we get Part 7 afterwards, because I really like that concept. If you were to go into the metaverse and be able to choose a Transformer as your persona, which Transformer would you pick and why? Probably Blitzwing because of the damage he can do. Especially if it was Persona 5 Strikers, because you need to do a lot of damage in that. Also, Personas are just stands. Stop kidding yourself. If you had to trust Vaughn to make a full video review unsupervised, no. How'd your doggo? Very good, thank you. Should I get Planet X's figures or hunt down the Hasbro versions of the Cybertron designs? Well, if budget's not an issue, then just go with Planet X. The original 4 War for Cybertron figures were great, but the Fall of Cybertron ones had a lot of their budget pulled from them. Fall of Cybertron was the moment where Mainline started going downhill before it went back up for Siege and all that stuff. It's single-handedly responsible for a lot of mainline collectors jumping onto third parties, so if you really want to do those designs justice, Planet X is the way to go. Opinion on Beast Wars? One of my favourite series. It's probably the best written out of the entire franchise. What are your thoughts about the Cybertron Deluxe Class Unicron? Would you like it to be revisited in the future? And will you consider reviewing it if you obtain one? I'm technically breaking the rules a little bit here because that's 3 questions, but they're all related to the same thing and I'll just go through it quickly. I don't have it, so I can't really say, and while I'd like to see third parties tackle it, as I've said before, they're probably not interested. They're probably only interested in IDW, G1, and the Movieverse. Actually, IDW is not even getting any attention these days, so it's just G1 and the Movieverse. And as for whether I review it or not, it just depends on whether I have an angle for it. I don't review toys just because, oh, I want to review that. It's more about what angle I can bring to the conversation. What can I say about a toy that is interesting? What can I say about a toy that would interest you, the viewer? If I can't say anything aside from it's good, or it's bad, or it's a product of its time, then I don't really bother reviewing something. So if I do get it, I'd probably decide whether to review it or not once I'd had it for a bit. What gimmick of a previous TF line do you want to see either Generations or a new TF line tackle? I don't want to see gimmickified lines, I just want regular Transformers with regular articulation. Shouldn't just being a Transformer be a gimmick enough? Some gimmicks can be fun, don't get me wrong, but it's always taking budget away from the main figure. Not saying it's bad, just saying it's unnecessary. What do you think of Hasbro's push to have more staple lore bits in the new Transformers series, like the 13 and the Allspark? I reckon it's alright now, but if they keep pushing it too far, it's going to be detrimental to the franchise. The franchise in the 2000s thrived on reinvention, on bringing new ideas to the table. And whilst going back to those ideas is a good thing, if they don't make any new ones, it's just going to stagnate. It's the same old story that I've always been saying. Transformers needs to evolve, it needs to go to the next step. We're stagnating at the moment and it frustrates me. What do you think about Konosuba? Where's season 3, you bastards? Few Adams versus Vaughn. Who do you think will win in a fight? Few in a heartbeat. What do you think of Titans Return Quake? I never liked the colour scheme, it just kind of looked mediocre to me. I did end up buying one, but I ended up selling off the body. I ended up using the Titan Master head for my custom Studio Series G2 Dreadwing. Well, I say custom, but really it's mostly retro labels. The only custom thing is the new faceplate and the new paint on the head. Yeah, it gets the job done, I guess. I guess it works really well as a generic body for swappable heads, but I'm not that into that concept, so I just was happy to get rid of it. And finally, which figures would you want in an Armada toy line? I have been craving a Commander class or a Titan class remake of Tidal Wave. Yes, I prefer the Energon color scheme, but just having a Tidal Wave with modern engineering would be really cool. I'd also like to see that Armada Optimus Prime at some point, but I don't know if it's going to come out or not. Hoping it does, but if they make a Tidal Wave, I'm gonna shit myself with happiness. Anyway, that is finally it. Jesus, that was a long, egregious 2-hour filming session. Yeah, I'm looking at the time here and I was not expecting it to take that long. I might even have to delay this video because of how long the filming took. I'm hoping I don't have to, but I might have to. But that's not to say I didn't have fun with this. I had a lot of fun doing these. They take a lot of work, which is why I don't do them very often, but I'm very glad that I was able to answer these questions. I'm thinking the next Q&A might be open for patrons specifically, maybe if I reach the 50 patron mark. I think I'm currently sitting around 12, so we'll see how long it takes to get further. Just a bit of a bonus for those patrons. But in the future, if you do have any questions and don't mind them not appearing in the videos, you can just ask me anyway. I'm open on social media, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, thanks for checking this one out, and I guess I'll see you in the next review, whichever one that'll be. I don't know what the schedule is, so I guess it's back to work. Just gotta be certain, but looks like he's finally got... I'm gonna kill that son of a bitch.